I am going to be showing you how to do the smocking stitch today. I wanted to show you the full piece that this video is going to be giving instructions for, but the black yarn does not show up very well on video, so I have a little sample square that is completed here that you can see the stitches a lot better in, and then I'll be showing you with a lighter colored yarn how to actually do the stitch. So the smocking stitch, the vast majority of the actual knitting that you are going to be doing is creating 2x2 ribbing, so just knit 2 stitches and purl 2 stitches. You can see at the bottom all of the 2x2 ribbing. That is what you are going to be doing. You'll do 3 rows of 2x2 ribbing and then 1 row of smocking, 3 rows of 2x2 ribbing, and then 1 row where you're doing those smocking stitches. The most important part about making sure that your smocking looks correct when you're finished is and the pattern gives you all of this information. This is kind of just as an extra check to make sure that you are on the right track as you're working. The first row of smocking, you're going to be gathering the two stitches of right side stockinette stitch, so your 2 knit stitches, to the next set of 2 knit stitches, and you've got those 2 purl stitches will be gathered up in there. The next row of smocking stitches, you will be gathering the offset 2 rows of knit stitches to the next 2 rows of knit stitches. So you're still gathering 2 rows of knit with 2 rows of knit, and that purl, the 2 rows of purl are underneath there, but it's the opposite too. So you gather the second and third sections of ribbing on the first one, and then you grab the first and the second and the third and the fourth on the next one, and that's what creates that smocking pattern. And you're just alternating. One row of smocking, you're going to be gathering these 2, the next row you're out, and then you're back to these 2 and then out again. And that is the exact same thing that happens on a larger scale on the finished piece. So to actually do the smocking stitch, we are going to be looking at this piece here. I've already done the first row of smocking, that's done on row 4, and then you do 3 additional rows of 2x2 ribbing, and now I'm ready to do my second batch of smocking stitches is row 8. The pattern is going to tell you to purl the first 2 stitches, and now we are going to do the smocking stitch. The first thing I like to check is that I am on the correct one, so I'm not putting a smocking stitch immediately above where my smocking stitch was last time. I am going to be doing that offset like I was talking about. And the pattern says with the smocking stitch that we are going to count over 6 stitches. So I'm going to count over 2, 4, 6 stitches, and I am going to put my needle in between that 6th and 7th stitch. So I've got 6 stitches on my left hand needle, and I've put my right needle through as if I was going to do a knit stitch, but I've actually gone between the 2 stitches. I'm going to wrap my yarn around my right hand needle just like I'm doing a totally normal knit stitch, and pull that through the fabric as if I were doing a fairly normal knit stitch. It does feel a little bit funny on your needle. Now I've created this loop on my right hand needle out of nothing. It was not a stitch to start with. I'm going to take that new loop that I just created, put it over on my left hand needle. And now, since I created a loop out of nothing, if I just knit this loop as if it were a normal loop, I'm going to have added a stitch to my fabric, which is not what I want to do. So I'm actually going to knit that new loop that I just created together with the loop next to it. So I'm going to do a knit 2 stitches together, just like normal. I put my needle through. I do want to make sure that this string that stretches across, that is what creates the smocking effect, I want to make sure that that's nice and tight. So I am going to take my working yarn and I'm really going to pull, kind of for all I'm worth, pull very much tighter than you would normally do. I like to have inserted my right hand needle to do my knit 2 together before I pull, because if I find that if I pull that as tight as I can get it and then try to put my needle through, I can't get my needle through. So now I'm going to do a knit 2 together, wrap my yarn around just like normal, pull that through just like normal. It does feel a little bit tight because we've just tightened it down a whole lot. And then slide those 2 stitches off the edge into the air just like a normal knit 2 together. So that is my smocking stitch. The pattern gives you all of those as written instructions, and then the remainder of the instructions in the pattern tell me to knit 1 more stitch. So that is, again, we were working in 2x2 ribbing. It's kind of like we just did the first knit stitch, so we are going to do the second knit stitch of my 2x2 ribbing. So the pattern says to knit 1 more. And then the pattern says to purl 2 stitches. All of these feel kind of gathered up close together. It feels a little more challenging than average to get your needle through there just because we've tightened that down so much. Then the pattern says to knit 2 more stitches. Again, I'm just maintaining that 2x2 ribbing. And then the pattern says to purl 2 stitches. So we did the smocking stitch, we knit 1 more, we purled 2, we knit 2. Now the pattern says to purl 2. These 2 are the first that are outside that smocking stitch because we counted over those 6 stitches, and those are the 6 stitches that are gathered up. So now the pattern is having us knit or purl 2 more stitches. Those 2 stitches are kind of the ones that are centered right over the smocking stitch that we did the last time. You can pull and tug things just a little bit to get them to lay a little bit nicer, but you can already see the smocking starting to show up here. And then we're just going to repeat that until we are nearing the end of our row, and do that over and over again. That is going to create your smocking. I hope that smocking stitch makes sense to you. Once you get going with things, it really does. It's very visually easy to tell that you're in the right spot as you're doing it. Enjoy the rest of the smocking stitch on your piece.